When I said I would do this, I think that I was remembering music in a very personal way, because as you probably know, my name is Jim Bennett. My father was Donald Bennett. I'm a direct descendant of Ransom Cole, as is almost everybody you're going to see tonight. I don't want to say anything, but there seems to be something about genes of the Cole family which have come down to many of us and keeps right on going to our children and our grandchildren, which has been very nice. I want to give a special thank you to Bush Fuller, who is back there in Blaine, for providing some of the materials that I needed to produce this. I also want to thank Bev Melville. Bev has been really instrumental in this town in providing choral music for many, many years. My first experience with singing was in the Locks Mills Church Choir with Arnold, who's still there, and Bev. And I think it was one of those deciding moments that helped me to decide that I wanted to have a career in music. Bev has worked on the cantatas since 1976, and she's also directed them all up until the last couple of years when I've had the privilege of doing my best to try to fill her shoes. Cantata's been a really big part of the choral music here in the community. And Bev, thank you so much for what you've done for music for us here in Greenwood. Oh yeah, she's a Cole too. Was your grandfather? Grandfather was Stanton Cole. Yeah. And my great-grandmother, Mary Cole, they were brother and sister. So, I don't know. You got to be real careful in this town who you marry, I'm telling you. Just a bit about Hosea Ripley that you're going to see a little bit of. For years, I've been involved with Civil War bands and reenactments of music of the mid and late 19th century. The instruments that you have, I brought in as some of my collection, of instruments from that period. I think the newest instrument there is around 1900 or so. Anyway, Winfield Scott Ripley was born on Paris Hill. So I thought, well, two Ripley brothers, both cornet players, both band persons. I mean, they've got to be related. So for years, we kept saying that they were brothers. As it is, I can tell they were not related at all. Hosea Ripley was born in Rumford. Another big thing that I discovered was that even though Winfield Scott Ripley had lived down in the Boston area and was tremendously well known for all of the great music he wrote, some of the music that I've been playing that had Winfield Scott Ripley's name on it, he didn't write. Hosea did. And the Eastman Wind Ensemble, which is part of the University of Rochester, recorded many of his works. The first work that you're going to hear when the cornet band is shown, the Locks Mills cornet band is shown, is a schottische which he wrote and was recorded by the American brass band. Also, the reason that the Civil War was so important is there were well over 10,000 bandsmen in the North. And they all practiced like crazy and played in bands. Then the war ended. And when they mustered out, they gave them their instruments and they came home. Well, what to do? So all the little communities formed cornet bands, brass bands. And they're how they produced music for people to hear. Don't forget, if it wasn't live, you didn't hear it. So these cornet bands also played operas. They played classical music, marches, and quicksteps. So they filled a huge gap. And Hosea Ripley, I found a small amount of information, but after 3 weeks on the computer, I did find something. It mentioned that he had lived in this area for many years, that he was a master teacher of singing, and that he was a cornet band director of some reputation, not only here, but several other bands in this area. He died in 1887. He moved to Walker's Mills, and he ran a power station there. Now, the station wasn't generating electricity in 1880, but they were using the water to produce products, and he was involved with that. The first picture you're going to see is me. I get to control it. Actually, it's there because it's the very first performance I ever did. I played for my 8th grade graduation on the stage in the town hall. I played Dream to Me Only with Thine Eyes on the trombone, and my cousin, Carmen Martin, also direct descendant of the Coles, was my accompanist. Carmen now lives in Arizona and Colorado, and sometimes she's back here. I don't think she's quite back yet this summer, but she still plays the piano and has been involved with her church. I'm going to do one other little story, and then we're going to get to watch this. This is another very personal thing. My first performance was on that stage. In the year 2000, I was very privileged to be selected to tour the People's Republic of China as a soloist. One of my very best friends, who teaches at the University of Georgia, trumpet player, and I went. We're going about three and a half weeks. At the end, we were in Beijing, and we'd been there several days teaching, and we had to do this huge concert at the end. And people that we had been seeing all over China all came there that night to hear us do it. I remember thinking, as I walked out onto that stage, truly, I did think this. My God, this guy from Locks Mills, Maine, is sure a long way from home. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. We've got some pictures down here. Some of them are included in the movie, and you're free to go see them. I also brought in some early brass instruments. As I say, I do play the euphonium and the baritone horn. I'm a trombonist. The horn on the left is an 1884 Boston Musical Instrument Company instrument. It's the very first baritone horn ever made with a short bell. And to our knowledge, it's the only one left. So I ask you not to pick it up. It is really priceless. It's a museum piece. I still play it. Well, now we're going to see a video. This was fun to produce. I had no idea what great music has been produced in this little town, but you're about to hear it. Was the conductor of the Locks Mills Cornet Band. He was also reported to be a master teacher of singing. He lived for many years in Walker's Mills. The Yankee Brass Band has taken over, where the Lux Mills Cornet Band and other bands have gone away. They now represent the music of the mid-19th century.
And that father came to Greenwood City at the store, and I'm not sure the year, but in the middle to late 1890. That father was looking for a place for them out to get a chance to board out in the country for a sort of vacation. They were vaudeville actors. So they recommended at the store that he go to Patch Mountain up to my folks and see if they would take them. And of course my father, like he was, the door was always open to everyone. They came. They loved it. And they had that vacation and they wanted to come back. And they came back for a number of years. And they were playing everywhere, all around, all over the United States. And
they went by the Jupiter Brothers?
what?
The Jupiter Brothers?
Yes, they were known as the Jupiter Brothers. They had a vaudeville way. They were cowboys, supposedly. And, well, they liked it so well, they used to keep coming back. And they stayed there, always stayed there. And one of them was very musical, the older one. William, his name was. The other's name was Charles. And he went down to the village and hired a piano and had him bring it up to Patch Mountain so he could have it to play. And they had some great times. They were really good. And he was great, a communist, or whatever you can, yeah, I guess that's right. And he could play that, he could play anything. And they just adored my father and mother. They thought they were just, yeah. And they liked the whole family. And they came. Finally, we didn't hear anything from them. It went on for a number of years. And the one, whose name was William, he wrote and said that they were not brothers. They were in the show business together. So they disbanded then. But they really used to come to Greenwood City, and after they got so well acquainted, my father used to take the horse and go down and meet them. I always brought gifts, always did.
Did they go all over the world, or?
Yeah, well, I don't know if they went out of the United States, but they was in a lot of the big cities, because I have all the postcards that shows. Well, I don't know, we looked forward to them coming, because we were small, one grown up. And nowadays, something like that seemed pretty big to us, because, we haven't been off in Patch Mountain. I only go down to Greenwood City.
From shortly after the turn of the century, socials were held regularly in the town hall so that people could get together and have a great time. The fiddler was a very important part of that. Mr. Poole was our first one, and he was a great teacher. Following him, most of us remember Cecil Kimball, who lived up by the old Mount Abram Hotel, and he and his wife Susie and Alice Davis from South Woodstock entertained all of us. The Christmas cantata has been a major part of music in the town of Locks Mills since 1976. However, from our earliest days of the church, music has always been an important part of bringing choral music to our community. Elmer and Mary Cole, brother and sister, son and daughter of Ransom and Elvira Cole, from down in Chattahoochee. Mary, my great-grandmother, was an accomplished pianist, owned her own organ, and also was reported to have a beautiful soprano voice. Uncle Elmer unfortunately had a dynamite accident and was blinded at a relatively early age. However, being a Cole, he managed to occupy his time by writing music. The piece, From the Cradle to the Grave, was self-published by him. Burl Martin on the left, Glenn Martin on the right, and Stan Seams. Burl Martin, the gentleman who was the father of so many great Martin musicians, was in his own right an outstanding guitarist. Next we have Rex Martin on guitar. Next to him, his sister Sandra and son Brian. Many of you have seen them perform many times on the stage in the Locks Mills Town Hall. Tink Martin. What a fantastic guitarist. The first time I heard him play, I really thought I was listening to Chet Atkins live. Had a beautiful sound, but more importantly, he shared his talents with so many different people. From the pictures you will see, you can see he's playing with other people. They're enjoying themselves. He's teaching. He's being a true musician. I'm sure that every time Tink played, there was always that Burl Martin looking down with a huge smile as he listened to him play. We are so lucky to have great recordings in our collection. Here we have Roland playing Mr. Sandman, and next the same tune played by his cousin, Harry Martin. Dixieland Band was formed by our uncle, Eldon Hathaway, and we practiced at the camp in the woods for the beginning. We started playing in public and found it was a lot of fun. We even did a few parades in Locks Mills, and we definitely enjoyed riding on a float rather than marching. We honestly practiced in the crank phone office on Rumford Avenue in Bryant Pond. As time went by, more and more members of the family tended to join in. Our children, and later our grandchildren, all became regular members of the Crank Dixieland Band. Early on, one of the things that makes a great Dixieland band is having a great banjoist along with us. And my brother Dean is great help because he definitely is a great banjoist. Oh, thank you. That's only about that much of what we really have for music in this little town. But it was a start. You know, a couple of things. My grandmother in that interview from Patch Mountain, which was done by my niece Cheryl, was 89, and she was only a matter of just a few months before she died. We were so lucky we had her. Mind was clear, and she was fun to be with in case you didn't figure that out. Couple of things that we need for future. You know, part of our job with the Historical Society is to preserve what we have. That's why I did this. Now I can put that on a thumb drive and it can be part of the Historical Society rather than just standing up here and reading it to you or whatever. I was afraid that it might get lost and you wouldn't hear the music the same way. I'd been, like one of my old music classes in college I taught, I'd been looking around for the records for so long and probably never gotten through the evening. But I think it helps to do it this way. We're not done. This is a never-ending project to preserve music and the culture of this little community. So part of the problem is a lot of this early stuff, like Marie's, Butch's, Marie, Joe Cole's, all of that stuff was on cassettes. Well, you can't even listen to it in your car anymore. So a lot of people just threw their cassette recorders away, and hopefully you kept some of those cassettes. What we do with them is I put them through my computer, through a program called Audacity, and I put it into the format that we can listen to it today. And that's what I did with all of the things that you've seen. Same for CDs, other things that you might have. Luckily, Tink, we had on CD. Terry recorded, the last piece that you heard was Terry's. He recorded them last week so that we would have good, fresh recordings. And obviously, he's still pretty darn good. The award he received was the Lenny Breau Award for the most outstanding country guitarist in the state. And I think well deserved. He lives in Greenwood City. Is working tonight, unfortunately couldn't be here. I would just like to call attention to the stars of tonight's show. Butch is in the back with his hat on. His co-singer, Marie. Stand up. Stand up. I don't know if we have anybody else who is actually on there, other than me a couple of times. That was unfortunate. But it was really fun to see. Please, if you have old cassettes, take a locally. You know, it's interesting, the first sound that Joe and Marie did, it sounded to me like you were just in the house, and probably in the kitchen, and people were talking, and I could hear them in the background. Those are some of the most valuable recordings we can find. Tink's recordings were never done professionally. They were done the same way. People were recording him. He was very shy. He was a very shy man. And we're so lucky that people recorded him, so we have these wonderful recordings. The first time I heard him at home, and I was listening to the CDs, I about yelled, and I said to Julie, you've got to come down here right now. You've got to hear this, because it's that good. So anyway, if you have old recordings you'd like to share, you can bring them into the Historical Society. We won't keep them, but I will, unless you want us to, and you don't have any other way of doing it. We would glad to take them. If not, I can re-record them, and so that we can keep them in a format which will be available for the future. So I want to thank you for all of you coming this year. We're not done yet, but questions?
Do you have quite a few of Tinker's? I've got quite a few CDs of Tinker.
We do. I think there are about 5 or 6. And the other day, Terry recorded 14 tracks in a day. In a day. He did 14. And I'll tell you, they're all as good as the 2 you just heard. Yeah. Any other questions about this or how we did it? And we've just scratched the surface. Hopefully, we'll get some more things. I need pictures. Pictures. Because if you have pictures, they're just as valuable. Yes?
I was just mentioning that a lot of music happens on the Memorial Day and Veterans Day and all the parades. That's
Absolutely.
another piece that could go with your music.
You're right. I remember playing down here with Gould Academy Band all through high school, and my wife Julie was in that band as well. And You're right, all of those things are part of our heritage. We're very fortunate, not many towns had a cornet band. Locks Mills did. And not only that, a pretty famous conductor, because I have found at least 6 works that he had published. Most of them I played with the Yankee Brass Band. So they were actually major pieces that brass bands played all around New England. Okay, now the second part, we have a little bit of entertainment with modern entertainment. And the Shannagy Ramblers, which Butch is a member, I'll let you introduce your group when you get up here. But you guys can come on up and I'll move the screen. And they're going to play a little set for you to show you that music is still very much alive and well in this community. And it sure is. By the way, the Crank Telephone Band is still in existence. We still play at every family reunion. That means 2 hours of food and 3 hours of picking and grinning. We also do something else. There's a tradition in our family that we play for our funerals. And we'll be playing, unfortunately, on Saturday at 1. Because the band knows how to say so long. And that's a big part of what we do. So they're going to get ready. I'll take the screen down, turn off the projector so we don't ruin anything. And I'm going to give Gail back her mic.
Thank you, Karen. This song is called Rubber Dog. I'm going to tell you a little Boil That Cabbage Down. This is a song that my grandfather taught my father, and my father taught me this a long time ago. Here we go. There we go. Make sure everybody's awake. You awake? All right.
Yeah, I'd like to just introduce the band here if I could. On the fiddle, Roddy Royer. Annie Schussler, he lives in Bryant Pond, so he's good. Gail Scott on the bass. And one of the famous Coles is on the drums up there. That's Valerie Cole, went down on Crystal Park. And I'm pretty sure in case anybody don't know. Gary for some Okay, someone will know.
Glad to be off the road. No, you did good. Wonderful. Kill it.
Does it all. In my hour of darkness, in my time of need, oh Lord, grant me vision, oh Lord, grant
butch thing to mess with for you. That
It's kind of a tongue twister, so I don't know if I can get them all out.
I'll have you butch.
Everybody having fun?
Okay, so this one is completely different. We try to put a mixture together of a lot of different stuff that we do, so you're gonna see a kind of a big variety.
This is a showcase of several different instruments, versatility as a musician,
My Aunt Charlotte used to be pretty good at this, so I don't do
four
her
changes
justice.
in key.
I don't do her justice, but I'll give it a good try.
The one thing we can't live out is Kurt Minster over there on the sound.
That's
And
right,
his
Kurt.
assistant, Toby.
This is a song by the Pogues.
Y'all heard of the Pogues?
Actually, it's recorded by the Pogues. It wasn't written by the Pogues.
They're from Gilead.
I'm not ready.
Where was his voice?
Y'all set?
I'm all set.
Let's see this. I'll try to play catch up.
I met my love by the gasworks wall, bringing the green by the old canal. Kissed my girl by the factory wall. Dirty old town, dirty old town. Got a drifting across the moon. Cats are prowling on their beats. Springs a girl from the streets at night. Dirty old town, dirty old town. Heard a siren from the docks. Saw a train set the night on fire. Smelled the spring on a silver wind. Dirty old town, dirty old town. I'm gonna make me a big shark patch, shining steel, tempered in the fire. I'll chop you down like an old dead tree. Dirty old town, dirty old town. I met my love by the gasworks wall. Raised a dream by the old canal. I kissed my girl by the factory wall. Dirty old town, dirty old town. Dirty old town, dirty old town.
Now we'll go back to an old Buck Owens tune.
We'll get the drummer on them drums. Just the filling.
goes to Neil Young.
I went to town to see you yesterday, but you were not home. Things are different round here every night, for I wandered all alone. It's so hard for me now, but I'll make it somehow. I know I'll never be the same. Won't you ever change your ways? It's so hard to make my way when you're on the losing end. And I feel that way again. But I miss you more than ever. Since you're gone, I can hardly maintain. Things are different round here every night. My tears fall down my drain. It's so hard for me now, but I'll make it somehow. Though I know I'll never be the same. Won't you ever change your ways? It's so hard to make a pay when you're on the losing end. And I feel that way again. It's so hard for me now, but I'll make it somehow. Oh, I know I'll never be the same. Won't you ever change your ways? It's so hard to make a pay when you're on the losing end. And I feel that way again.
I don't know if they're ready for this one, Butch.
Oh, they're ready.
We're ready. We're ready.
Some of that old-fashioned country for you.
Old-fashioned country.
Loves to fly without reaching, waiting for the rain. Eating in his
Oh, no, I'm going bottom of the end now.
Keep going.
Keep going. Do it. Yep. All right.
Don't worry about it.
Perfect.
This is not really the story of my life. It was better than this.
For the old fashioned love
Not much story. Well, there was a time I could take my cares away, drown out all the heartache, every night of the day. When the clouds crashing through, well, I can have one more, but that whiskey ain't working anymore.
Unless you want more, we can play till about midnight if you want.
That's my bed. Right along.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to do one more. And dying to get home.
I'm just dying to get home. Smoking a cigarette, drinking all night long.
Obi-Wan Butch that they play back for your great-great-grandchildren.